Hello again. It's time to talk about cause and effect. Now, cause and effect is one of the most important kinds of thinking you're going to be asked to do as a professional, and for that matter, as a citizen. Because cause and effect is where you try to determine why something happens. And if you can figure out why something happens, you can react to it intelligently, substantively. So figuring out why something is happening, or what that chain of logic is, how something gets from here to here, how one thing causes another. That is a vital piece of how adults live their lives. And we all have that crazy Uncle Harold who likes to sit at the kitchen table and pound his fist on the table, go, "Rah!" You know, that Obama, rah, he did this and this caused this, and you know what? He often is making it up as he goes along, and that's why nobody takes weird Uncle Harold seriously. But causation, which is the word we use for determining cause and effect relationships, causation is important to us right from the get-go. Essentially, as soon as our brain starts working, we're trying to figure out causation. Meaning, when you're a baby and you cry, mama comes. And wow, babies figure this out pretty quickly, don't they? They figure that if they cry when they only feel a little bad, well, then mama's going to come. And so they learn to use crying to get what they want. When you're a toddler, you reach up on the stove. Mama's cooking. You reach up on the stove and you touch the hot pot there. Ow! There you go. You've learned something. I reached up and I touched something on the stove and I hurt myself. Reaching up there caused this pain. I'm not going to do that again. All right, so right from the get-go, causation is an important part of the way we organize our understanding of reality. So let's talk specifically about how this phenomenon works and how we're going to go about writing about it. All right, so the first two terms that we have to figure out are causation and correlation. Now, these are two very important but different ideas. Causation is when we determine one thing causes another thing. Correlation is when those two things are connected, but we can't necessarily determine that one caused the other. So let's look at an example. Here's a sentence. As ice cream sales go up, incidents of drowning rise. Well, that's a correlation. It means that these two ideas are connected, but one does not cause the other, even though the sentence makes it seem like one causes the other. Because here's the situation. In summer, ice cream sales go up because it's hot and people want cool treats. Also in the summer, people go to pools and to beaches. And because they're in the water a lot more, there's more drowning. So ice cream sales go up and drowning goes up, but they're not caused, but drowning is not caused by ice cream sales or vice versa. Both of them are caused by the same thing, the temperature going up. So they're both correlated with each other, meaning they're connected to each other, but one does not cause the other. And so it's important when we discuss what we think is cause and effect that we're not actually discussing correlation, because it's not the same thing. But if we look at a different sentence, such as this one, as temperatures rise, more people go to the beach and pools, and more people drown. Ah, so that's different. That's causation. Here we can see the chain of logic. We have multiple events. Temperatures rise. Temperatures rising cause more people to go to the beach because that's where it's, fun to hang out and cool down when it's hot, and you can't go to the beach really so much when it's cold. Because more people at the beach and at the pools, more people are getting in the water, and the more amount of time, the sheer amount of time people spend in the water, more people are going to drown. So you can see the clear chain of logic there. One leads to the next. Okay, so now we arrive at the next step in the process, and this is where you get involved thinking about your next paper. So you have to pick a phenomenon, something that you think is going on, and figure out what is its cause or its set of causes, or possibly its effects. We'll get to that in a minute. So I happen to be particularly interested in mixed martial arts. I love to watch fights. I especially watch a lot of those UFC events. Now, I'm fascinated by the fact that MMA, or mixed martial arts, has overtaken boxing. So why would that be? So I would have to look at the series of causes that I think might have led to the fact that MMA is more popular now than boxing. And I think there are a bunch. There's the fact that boxing does not have really scintillating personalities anymore. There's the fact that boxing is so badly run. There are all these different boxing organizations, and they all say they have the world champion, and it's hard for the boxing fan to really know who has the world champion, or maybe these two world champions at the same weight class never fight because they're in different organizations. It sucks. On the other hand, in mixed martial arts, you've got one organization which has almost all the really great fighters. It's much splashier. It's more upbeat. I mean, the action is faster. They use modern day marketing to make it much more exciting. So there are lots of reasons why mixed martial arts is more popular than boxing right now. And if I were to write an essay about it, I would pick the 3 or 4 that I think are the most important, and I would base my essay on that. So that's what you need to do. You need to pick some phenomenon that you think is interesting and figure out what you think are its big cause, or its main causes, or its big effect, or its main effects. All right, so let's take a look. So let's take a look at some of these phenomenon. All right, so here's one. Teen pregnancy is way down. And it's true. This is a fascinating phenomenon that's going on nationwide. So why do we think teen pregnancy is going down? Well, there could be a lot of reasons. The one I just covered, mixed martial arts is overtaking boxing in popularity. That's a phenomenon that I find interesting. Cell phones are now considered necessary, where 10 years ago they were a luxury. That's an interesting phenomenon, right? It doesn't have to be that way, but it is that way. And so because cell phones are everywhere, right, it's interesting to figure out why it happened, or it's interesting to figure out if there are some powerful effects. Lastly, here at Albany State, our sports teams are very successful. Why is that? Are we better at recruiting? Are we only playing weak teams? Do we have a great reputation in our sports? Is it just because we're bigger and we have more students and draw more people? It's difficult to say. So we'd have to figure that out and investigate the causes, or for that matter, investigate the effects. What are the effects of ASU sports teams being successful? Does that help in recruiting regular students? Does it create more interest in activities? So these phenomenon are all interesting because they are powerful, and it makes them meaty. They have a lot going on. So let's look at this one. Our phenomenon is teen pregnancy is way down. So what are the causes? Well, there are probably quite a few causes, so we'll have to investigate what all of the possible causes are and then pick the ones we think are the most important. Okay, so what might be some of those causes? Well, over the last 20 years, we've had a lot better sex education in the schools, so everybody knows the truth now for the most part. We have organizations that provide condoms and other kinds of prophylactics at little or no cost to people who can't afford them, or who want to get them secretly so as not to alert authority figures. We've got pop culture things going on. I mean, think of just this recent series of reality shows about motherhood, especially like Teen Mom. What we learn from those is that, yeah, it can be done, and it can be done well, but it is hard, and it basically ruins your social life. It's very difficult to be both a good mother and to have all the fun you want to have. You really have to sacrifice a lot, and all of these images are changing the way people look about it. Another possibility is the fact that in most of the country, students are just busier. They don't have time to do things that get them into the kind of trouble. As well, economically, despite the trouble we've had over the last 2 or 3 years, overall people have improved opportunities, especially the poor and minorities have had, over the last 20 years, overall better opportunities, which leads to them doing other things and expecting that they have better possibilities, and they don't want to mess those possibilities up by getting pregnant. So those are just some of the possible reasons why teen pregnancy might be down. There are probably a whole bunch more. Now, you probably wouldn't want to cover all 5 of those in your paper, but you might want to just pick the 2, 3, or 4 that you think are most significant and dedicate your time to investigating how each of those leads directly to a lessening in the teen pregnancy. Now, here's the key. You don't have to only look at causes. It's the same process. Your phenomenon could be the cause instead of the effect, right? Because we were just talking about all the causes for teen pregnancy being down, all those causes leading to our phenomenon of it being down. But what if we treat teen pregnancy being down as the cause rather than the effect? Well, what are the effects created by the cause of teen pregnancy being down? What are the results of teen pregnancy being down? Well, that's a really interesting possibility to explore as well. All right, so let's look at it from the opposite direction. Teen pregnancy being down is our cause. What are its effects? Well, for one thing, you get lower single mother rates, and that's a big deal. Despite the fact we all know lots of single mothers are doing a great job, there's no question that it's a much harder process. And this hard process sometimes leads to some bad results. We get more high school graduation with lower teen pregnancy because kids get to stay in school instead of quitting school to take care of their children. We get less dependence on government subsidies and welfare and those sorts of things. And that's good for both the mother and the kids. We get equalizing pay between men and women because women are getting more education, women are more independent, and this allows them to be more successful in their jobs. We get greater college attendance because, once again, these women are, instead of having to take care of their children, they get to go to college much more freely. Now, obviously, lots of women who have children are going to college, but all of them will tell you it's much harder. It's a significant sacrifice, and some women are in a position to make that sacrifice, and some aren't. So teen pregnancy going down has lots and lots of effects, and the relationship is the same, right? Teen pregnancy being down is the cause. All of those social effects, follow directly from it. And so the way you build the paper is exactly the same. It's just you're treating your phenomenon as the cause as opposed to as the effect. And you can go either direction. So whichever kind of paper you want to write is just there. All right, so in many ways, this is a leap in difficulty, this essay, because the standards here are pretty high about you showing your thinking. Because what you can't allow yourself to do is to say, well, I think this causes it. Well, actually, out in the real world, nobody cares what you simply think. They only care what you think when it is attached to very clear reasons that are tied to real-world events. And if you can't tie what you think to real-world events, if you can't give specific evidence for why you think it, then I'm sorry to say, what you think won't matter. And so that's what college is significantly about. It's you figuring out your way of tying what you have to say and what you think, your interpretation of the world, to very clear real-world events. So as you go about doing this essay, be very careful in figuring out your cause and effect relationship. Make sure that what you're talking about is cause and effect and not correlation, because lots of things are connected that aren't cause and effect. And make sure you can communicate how that cause and effect relationship works. Now, that's going to be the same whether or not you're talking about what things in the past caused what's happening now, or how what you're talking about now is going to cause these things in the future, right? One is a discussion of the past, and the other is predictions about the future. And so, here you go. This is a step up. This is entering the big leagues, because this is the kind of thinking that is exactly the kind of thinking that professionals are asked to do all the time. So show your ideas developing. Make sure your cause and effect relationship, your causal chain of logic, is very clear. Just like it is in that one example I gave you about hot weather leading to people going to the beach, which leads to people increasingly drowning. So show your logic, and you will be just fine. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you just want to run some ideas by me. All right, good luck.